Hey, White Sox fans, guess what? It's podcast 105 on the mothership. I'm lucky enough to host this mothership podcast. My name is Brett Ballantini. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. It's a rare moment of good cheer for the White Sox coming off of two straight victories. And listen, this is a relatively rare mothership podcast. Usually we have like a round table. We got to have like a get to know you question because there's 18 different voices you got to try to associate if you're listening. Really, hey, people, just watch. Makes it a little easier. Plus, you get to see all the visual antics. But this time, guess what? I mean, this is a throwback episode. Chrystal, O'Keefe, and I have done many one-on-one podcasts in the past. Listen, we're doing it again. Listen, you've heard her on such podcasts as Soxy Chicks, not on our SB Nation network, or at least the Southside Sox network, but also, come on, Estrogen Power Hour. What the heck is it? Come on, help me out. It's the
Max podcast.
For God's sake. It's Sam's. What the heck is it?
We do our White Sox group therapy.
Group therapy. How can I forget group therapy? We all need it. Listen, there's not a million of them, but hey, nearest and dearest to her heart, it's the first. It's the original. It's the Southside Sox podcast. Chrystal, as believe it or not, I welcome in the other half of the Indianapolis Field Office.
I could always count on Joe.
Exactly. Joe, he saw the bat signal. He saw the Southside Sox logo flashing in the sky, and now he's going to come and join us. But just catch me up on where you're at. Road trip started rough. We knew it was going to be a tough one with the Blue Jays and the Rays, two tough teams, but ended up somehow scraping 2 wins out of 6. I guess that's sort of a high note.
Yeah. I just read something like they no longer face the Red Sox, the Yankees, and I think the Rays, and They went 11-8. So I can't be too
take that
mad.
AL East.
I mean, I can't be too mad when they're going against, the Red Sox were heating up, and the Yankees obviously are too good. So, that was promising.
Yeah. Yeah, it's 2 wins. Okay, the in the other cubicle, I don't know, he was sort of snoozing, and again, as I said to you, Chrystal, he saw the Southside Sox logo flashing in the sky and said, "Uh-oh, it's podcast time." It's Super Joseph's Resis also joining us on this podcast number 105. Okay, the tip-off, Joe, is just, hey, listen, it could have been a lot uglier. It certainly could have been an 0-6 road trip. It turned out just to be a 2-4. Not great, but certainly probably going in, even if the Sox were playing pretty well, you'd be like, okay, going to Tampa and going to Toronto, you'll take 2 out of 6. You're going to feel okay with that. Is that where you're at, given how this ended up?
For sure. There is a lot of work still to be done here. And I'm not going to get too far ahead of myself with this team. Obviously, it was a great ending to this road trip. But, I mean, it feels almost a little bit of like deja vu from a couple of weeks ago after they won those 2 games against the Yankees. I was feeling pretty confident going forward after that, and after they had climbed back above 500 temporarily, after winning back-to-back games against a really tough Yankees team. So winning back-to-back games in Tampa Bay like that, you can't take it for granted. But overall, looking at the big picture, still not out of the woods yet, and certainly almost at the 1/3 mark of the season. Being under 500 is absolutely not where they want it to be. So gotta get, really, they need to be above 500 before I have any sort of seriously positive emotions about the season.
Yeah, the sucker punch that is the 2022 Chicago White Sox. Just when they pull us back in, they disappoint us again. All right, let me hit you with some stats, because I like to do that. 25-27. This time I got the record right, Joe. 25-27. 5 back of Minnesota in 3rd place. Go figure. 2 better teams. A third of the way through the season. But as Steve Stone points out, just 3 back in the loss column. Okay, let's see. The run differential isn't good. It's minus 56 That's not good.
No.
That tracks them for a 62 win season, which is where they've been at. Again, last year I kept throwing out there the statistic nobody cares about, run differential, kept throwing it out like, hey, they're on a 99 win pace or 95 win pace, they're on a 102 win pace. We kept throwing it out there, and listen, they ended up pretty much, despite sort of run out of gas at the end of the season, they pretty much held to it, and they certainly got well into the 90s, which not many of us thought they do. So we're definitely not guaranteeing the White Sox are going to be a 60-ish win team, but right now that's how they're playing. And frankly, you almost got to hand it to Tony La Russa. And I know no one wants to hear that, but this team should be terrible. This team should have 20 wins based on that run differential. Even when they win, they are barely scraping by. He is finding ways to get wins. In last year, he did the opposite. So, if we criticize him for it last year, reluctant credit so far this year, but okay, let's project a little bit. And I'm gonna throw this to the field office here soon to see exactly what the White Sox can do. Sports Talk, that Twitter account that just sort of you love to read because they come up with some crazy stuff that sort of haunts your dreams. Throughout that the parallels, I guess this was maybe a Jay Cuda thing, but they sort of amplified it. And that was how the 1983 White Sox finished with 99 wins. They started basically the same way through X amount 20 games and through whatever 40-some games. Okay, well, if they're going to win 99 games, this 2022 team needs to go 69-41. That's not going to happen. No, I'm sorry. They need to go 74-36. That's not going to happen. To equal last year's win total, which I believe, Joe, was 94 wins. I don't know, 94, 95. I forget.
93.
93? Oh, well, all right. I can't adjust my math that easily, but clearly they don't have to do as well. I had them at 69-41. I guess that's just 68-42. That's not going to happen. So maybe realistically, knowing this division is going to be great right now, both run differential wise, Cleveland and Minnesota both track to 90 wins. That sounds like a division winning total for the AL Central. I said, hey, this division's terrible. Let's say 89. 89 seems realistic for the White Sox. Just to get to 89 wins, the White Sox need to go 64-46 the rest of the way. 18 over seems doable. I mean, we're certainly not going to be talking about playoffs if they can't go 18 over the rest of the way. So obviously 99 is clownish. 93, 94, 95, whatever it was last year. Okay, 93, Joe. Seems like a stretch, but not impossible. 89 seems realistic. And frankly, it might not take that much to get into the playoffs from the AL Central. Chrystal, Joe, where are you tracking the White Sox for wins at this point in terms of something that's realistic? Maybe best case, but then maybe what's also realistic?
I put him around like 75. I don't see them
not going to find that gear
higher, but yeah.
So this really is going to be like a 1984 revisited, which funny, Jay Cuda and White Sox Talk did not throw that out there, that the season after 1983 was about as disappointing. This is the one I keep citing to everyone in terms of so far. This is very early, but this would definitely be a 1984 season because that team was riding so high and they were awful and they were never in it. They were in first place, I think, at the All-Star break, and then holy cow, did they tank the second half. So maybe the White Sox will do the reverse this year. Joe, what do you think in terms of realistic? Are you any more optimistic than 75 wins for this team?
I'd give them 87 at this point. Yeah. I am. Yasmani's beginning to lose me in terms of my confidence in him to rebound. And I had him pegged as a 4-WAR player this year, which, yeah, there's just no way he'll come close to that, I don't think, anymore, unfortunately. This is the part of the season where I begin to kind of say, like, okay, yeah, this player is just having a rough year, and I don't really see it, turning around. I think he falls into that category, and I'm getting to that point with Moncada, with how even though he was injured, of course, he's really been struggling this year, and those are a couple of players who I had high hopes for. So.
And he's always injured. That's a problem too. I mean, you can't say like, well, when he gets healthy, it's like sort of with Luis too. It's like, well, okay. Yeah. In that miracle season when they play 160 games, like even with Tim Anderson, you can't say that. He's never had a full season.
Yeah, it's there are some positives that would have to happen for them to get even to 87 with them being off to kind of this slow start as it is. But yeah, I think their division is easy enough, and their schedule, throughout the second half of the season will be, it'll be friendly enough to where they'll be able to get away with some suboptimal play. And I think Lance Lynn coming back will make a big difference. So yeah, I do have some hopes, but tough to. I'd go with 87 now.
I want to stick with this, but a quick sidebar in your memories, and I know there's been. I mean, Adam Dunn was just a huge, and then he like teased us with that middle season. I want to say where he did have a big power save. So I mean, he's a guy who comes to mind, but this isn't just we're all like high on Yaz and we love him and all that, and we love his low average because he gets on base stuff, which is all great. I mean, he had a great season last year, but I mean, his baseball perspective, or Pacoda had him as the best catcher in the game this year. Had him, I want to say, as like the 5th best hitter in the game. His projected WAR was extraordinary. Now, granted, even when you saw it, you're like, huh, okay, that's really kind of him. But I mean, okay, like you're saying, Joe, 4 WAR seem realistic, especially given everything he brings to the table. It doesn't have to have a 300 average for you to say, man, this guy is all-star quality and he really contributes to the team. So boy, I don't know if there are players that come to mind quickly that are like, from what not just we in our hopes as fans projected, but just baseball projected as being great. I guess Dunn comes to mind for some reason, but Dunn was never the player that Yasmani Grandal is. This is really an extraordinary bottoming out, and let's hope it's not a bottoming out. Just maybe an off season, they still owe him money. He's still going to be with the White Sox. Let's hope this isn't like Adam Dunn that first year. It's like, holy cow, he's still with this team. You can't do anything with this guy. Hopefully there is a climb out for Yasmani, but related to that, where do either, I mean, I guess Chrystal, you don't really see the White Sox climbing out of this, but if they were to, and Joe, you do see them climbing out to some degree, where on this roster are we going to see the up in performance that we need? A lot of guys we're seeing the Kopechs of the team. He's probably pitching better than you would have expected. Okay, let's say he's even going to give you what he's given you so far the rest of the year, even though he's not going to give you full season of innings. Lynn is a guy you mentioned, Joe, that is coming and in theory should be giving the White Sox a punch and an upgrade on whatever spot he's taking, Vince Velasquez or whoever. But I'm not really sure I'm seeing a lot of guys underperforming in a way that's so extraordinary that the natural kick, Jose Abreu's already started to warm up. Yasmani would be a guy if he can wake up. Obviously, there's a huge, because it's the catching spot that looked like, who was saying again, not just us, we're saying the best catching core in the majors is not the best catching core in the majors. Is there an obvious spot, pen, rotation, a single player that we can really point to say, hey, this is the guy who's going to wake up and sort of lead us to those 87 wins, or, again, Chrystal, if it's even 500, if there's going to be a bit of a miracle run second 2/3 of the season, who's it going to come from?
It's going to come from Andrew Vaughn and Adam Engel. I mean, they're the only two that are doing anything right now, which is really sad when you think about, Andrew Vaughn's basically a rookie, and Adam Engel's the guy that you just kind of throw in wherever. But when they don't play for whatever reason that day, you notice it, and you notice they suck, and you rely on maybe AJ Pollock to do something. So I think they are going to be kind of the glue that holds a string of wins together, because again, they're the only ones really doing anything. Yeah, and that's the problem. Vaughn is a guy you'd think, if anything is playing, might be playing what you expected, probably a little better than what you have anticipated. So for him to give you a kick that's going to make up a win or two, that's probably not coming, whether it's because Tony doesn't let him play or because he can't do much more than he's already doing. Joe, is there a gap again beyond Yasmani? Because that would be that would be terrific. If he's the player that we thought he was before the season, well, that's going to help big and maybe even sort of like spread to a couple other guys kicking into gear. Is there an obvious spot beyond Lynn, who we just haven't had, where you think, where you see them getting to that 87? Because they're not playing at 87 pace right now.
Could Leury Garcia make another big recovery like he did
last year?
Last year, he got off to that really slow start, and then
hey, Joey's going to get the opportunity. We know that.
Yes, he's getting still lots of playing time. I mean, we've seen it happen before from him. I'm not counting on it though. Maybe Carlos Perez gets called up. Yeah.
Oh boy, that's tough when the catching core is like, okay, well, maybe Carlos Perez will come up and do well. I don't have a lot of answers. Obviously, it doesn't take a guy to like come out of nowhere and be a 5-WAR player, through the last 2/3 of the season. And maybe can just be Robert staying healthy and performing the way we think. And, it could be a bunch of guys. That's probably is what it's going to take. And that's the thing that troubles me when I look at the roster. I think, well, all right. I mean, is everybody, I've clearly the offense is underperforming. That's a problem. But I mean, is there one guy who's going to be able to step up aside from Grandal? If we think he's slightly cooked, well, that's a problem because that's one of the guys you're really going to need to run an anchor leg here to get the team into the 80s for wins. Chrystal's not being pessimistic. You look at the run differential, she's being very optimistic. And Joe, I'll have what he's having because holy cow, 87 does not look realistic right now. But again, something in the 80s is going to win this division. I don't think it's going to get the 90s. And that really is the answer here. What we're depending on is the rest of the teams in this division just suck so badly. The fact that the White Sox, I guess, have played. I don't know this for sure. It seems like Minnesota's schedule has been trashed. So they're going to have a rougher go of it. I'm not sure where the White Sox compare with Cleveland. It almost seems like what we're hoping is just, okay, well, they're going to fall back to the pack because they're going to play some tougher teams, which is not an unrealistic way to go about it. It certainly does not breed confidence, whether it's even winning division, but certainly not into the postseason of like this backing in 83 and 81 to win to win some sort of, hey, I guess you just got to get there, but it's tough not to be able to point to something. Okay, when Lance Lynn and 3 other guys come back, okay, well, this is going to be a completely different team. Problem is Lance Lynn's going to come back, and then Kopech he's going to be sitting for a while. You're lucky to get probably a start a week from him the rest of the way. If you expect to have him playing the pitch in the playoffs, it's sort of like we're cornered already, and it's so early in the season. It's rough. Am I missing something?
No. You're not. I agree I am terrified. I mean, I want Lance Lynn to come back, but at the same time, you're not giving Michael Kopech any innings and he's just going to regress. Mm-hmm. Like, I hate to think that, but he's not getting warm at all. He's going to regress and he needs more starts because he's been so good.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, we're going to do a little game show leading off the second half. We're going to talk a little bit about fan gatekeeping. Oh, we got plenty of fun stuff to talk about. It can't just be about the White Sox because it gets a little depressing. 75 wins, 87 wins. It wasn't what we wanted. 75 is optimistic right now, just looking at the run differential. It's rough. All right, let's take a break. We'll be back in a minute with the Indianapolis Field Office. It's a special Indianapolis Field Office edition of the Side Sox Podcast. Hang with us. Learn more about Indianapolis, cooking, Sox math, all sorts of things. Hang with us. Hey, White Sox fans, guess what? I'm not in Indianapolis, but that makes me the oddball because it's an Indianapolis Field Office, Side Sox Mothership Podcast. It's 105, Super Joseph Resis and Chrystal O'Keefe manning that office and joining cubicles. Joining me for this podcast, first half, we talked about how even though the White Sox ended the road trip the way they needed to end it, good Lord, it's still rough. It's rough going when we look ahead. So let's just take a pause. Maybe we'll get back to the White Sox and how they need to win a series against the Los Angeles Dodgers this week or whatever. Maybe we'll get to that as time runs out, but let's play a game. And here's the game. It plays off of a lot of the tone that we've had recently on site. We've had a lot of sort of op-ed pieces that are very critical of the White Sox, deservedly so. We had Zach Hayes with his evaluation of Rick Hahn's trading history. And, if you didn't read it, you should have. Go read it now. I'm not going to give you all right, the spoiler is it's really bad. We had the debut piece from Brian O'Neill, which dug into Tony La Russa. It was a sort of a higher-minded piece, but certainly dug into Tony's, I don't know, almost trolling the fan base a little bit with these lineups. And then, of course, Sunday morning, we published a Mark Liptak's piece, which basically identified the four horsemen of the White Sox apocalypse. And three of them are actual people, and one is just injuries. That's a big bugaboo for Mark. I'm not really sure the White Sox are that much more horrible than the rest of the major leagues, but somebody will do a study to tell me I'm wrong or right on that. But here's the game. The game is, friends in Indianapolis, the game is you can remove. If I knew reality shows better, I'd like vote people off the island or something, but I don't. So we're not really playing a game show. But if you can remove just one of these people from the White Sox, they're gone. They don't have to die, but they're gone. And the three are Jerry Reinsdorf, Rick Hahn, or Tony La Russa. Who do you choose? You can only choose one. Who do you choose to remove from the White Sox organization? This is a sick game, but hey, you did this to us, White Sox. Chrystal, Joe, let me know.
I'm going with Jerry because if Jerry is gone, Rick might have the balls, the kahunas to fire Tony, and that's two birds, one stone.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm
They
going
all
to
need to go, but Jerry for sure.
I'm going to jump in front of Joe because you sort of took my answer, but your reasoning was a little different. My reasoning is even more of a bloodbath, Chrystal, and that is if Jerry's gone, then the new owner is going to say, "What is this clown ass organization? Rick, bye bye." Of course, Tony, bye bye. Tony probably wouldn't, survive Jerry being gone, maybe literally, but yeah, that is my thinking too. It's sort of a cheat, and Joe, I challenge you to not just fall in line with that, but yes, that was also my thinking, Chrystal. So that's why I jumped in front of you, Joe. Okay, Joe, what is your choice?
This is a very good question, and I like the rationale behind it that you both used. I went in a different direction. I'm not just going to concur with this one. I was thinking Han actually, because just the way that how consistently he seems to make poor decisions with how to spend money. Like I would say a few years ago, I would have absolutely taken Jerry because there you have just very limited options when as a general manager, you're just kind of being forced to keep your payroll, under whatever, 130, 140 million. But yeah, this year especially has kind of convinced me like, okay, he had a pretty high ceiling in terms of how much he was allowed to spend on players. And we are seeing some poor results, to say the least, from the offseason acquisitions this year. And yeah, it's just kind of a very consistent theme. Like, okay, yeah, we in the mid 2010s couldn't find ways to efficiently spend money around Sale Quintana, a high performing at the time Adam Eaton, Jose Abreu, Todd Frazier. Like that team with that core should have been able to win, but they couldn't because they couldn't just find the right players to surround those guys. And I thought at that point, like there was kind of an excuse of like, okay, well, he wasn't really allowed to spend. But yeah, and again, here we are a few years later having the same issues with a good core, like a few really high performing players on the team, but just not enough players, surrounding them. And just not money did get spent quite a bit this past offseason, but not in a good way.
Yeah, that was something damning in Zach's piece, and that is Rick he's not found anything under a rock, and you have to do that. Ken Williams, for all the criticism, he's made some bad trades too. He's, he thank God he was the GM at a time when there weren't as frequent memes, because he'd be memed to death with his fans don't come out, we're not spending, and Kenny gets his man, all that stuff. But he found guys, and I mean, obviously a lot of that, you saw coalesce for 2005, of course. A guy was a career years that came out of nowhere. But I mean, when you really drill down with Rick, I mean, it's to the point where he's really almost found nobody, and that's pretty hard to do. You just think you stumble into it. I mean, I'm sure there's some of the guys under Ken Williams that really were maybe Rick Hahn, buttonholed that guy or whatever, like maybe Jose Quintana, maybe that was Rick Hahn, find or choice, who knows? But, he doesn't get credit for that. He wasn't the guy. at the time. And I think that's particularly damning. And it does make your choice predictably less bloody. That's what I think I would get from you, Joe. But that would be tempting. If I was really pressed, it's not this like fantasy scenario where like just the whole, they just cut the ownership suites out of the ballpark and replace them with new ones. Rick Hahn would be a very tempting choice. And really, I think it does come down to just maybe this last calendar year. Because, I know he's handcuffed to some degree with, Tony, but come on, handcuffed. He's, still hired the guy. I'm sorry. I know we probably didn't have a choice, but come on. But yeah, that fact that he did get to spend, the fact that there were deals, he like painted himself in a corner with Craig Kimbrell, the guys, he signed 20 other bullpen guys. This is a real clown show off season. And man, we are seeing some, really, Chrystal's sober answer to what this team is going to win this year. At this point, we're getting deep into the season at 75 wins. And that's actually technically that's optimistic. All of it, I can hear Chrystal say, come on, 75 wins. They're going to win more than 75 games. No, not based on where it's going. No, they are not, which is crazy. My goodness. Wow. This actually has the potential to beat 1984 in terms of disappointment. I guess it depends on how it all ends up. Okay. Game show portion over. You both do depart with a copy of the Side Sox Mothership Podcast home game. Enjoy it. It's fun. And okay, let's get back to some more weirdness with the White Sox. Again, I'll probably try to link to maybe Zach's tweet. I think he said it really well in response to Steve Stone today. And that is basically, listen, I won't even try to paraphrase. It's just sort of, what are you doing? It's not me. I don't represent the White Sox. Chrystal, you don't. Joe, you don't. We can say what we want. And by the way, we're positive and we're negative. Southside Sox account, positive when things are going well, negative, maybe even too negative sometimes. Okay, fine. But we're probably also a little bit too high when things are going well. That's being a fan. That's Steve Stone is not that. And the idea that this guy now, this is like a dozen times he is basically taken fans just like out to the shed to beat them over. I don't think any of the times I've seen him, I don't think anybody's been outright rude. Yeah, sure there are people reply to him with expletives or whatever. Okay. But usually it's just, hey, that's crazy, Steve. How can you think this rotation is going to do blah, blah, blah. And he just, I don't know. It's like some kind of strange, is it like a macho old man thing or something? I do not understand this like aggression he has. I want to tell the guy, if I could talk to him now, it's like, dude, I already got a dad. I don't particularly like him either. And he acts like you. I don't need two of them. And I don't need one of them on social media, for God's sake. Tone it down, man. Zach said it in a much, much better way. And he did a great job with that. And he's not the only one. But what is going on with maybe the most prominent sole representative of the team? Jason Benetti jumps around. He's doing all sorts of sports. He does other baseball. Sole voice of this team beating up fans.
Man, I don't know. Unless Jerry's like paying him per tweet to defend this team, I don't he is a joy on the broadcast.
Yes.
I have been miserable with Gordon. Miserable. Yes. I see his tweets and I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't get it. These are the most boomer takes I've ever seen. We're allowed to be pissed. The team is terrible right now. We're allowed to do that. We don't have to just enjoy this
the
roller coaster ride that Steve Stone is on. But I don't think he's watching the same team that we are. There's no way. He's either getting paid by Jerry or he is tuned into a totally different game.
Chrystal, you sound like you are not enjoying the ride. Okay, listen, Joe, you're a guy. Hey, we even came together sort of based on all this. You're Sox math guy. I'm like, hey, look at this guy named Joe. Maybe he wants to do something with Southside Sox. And Joe was like, oh God, this guy's bugging me. Okay, I'll say yes. Okay, listen. And obviously both of you are, you do a lot of, tweets. We all sort of do. That's the way we watch games now, right? Joe, what's your take on Steve Stone? What's the deal, man? You've gone up to the booth and met the guy.
Yeah, for our first interaction, that is not at all how I remember it going, with me reluctantly saying yes to the offer. That's not exactly how that went.
All right.
But I have a lot of respect for Steve Stone. All things considered, I'm glad he's the color commentator for the White Sox. Met the guy briefly in person. He was very friendly then. Sometimes on social media, I just wish he would just be quiet. I mean, like, yeah, it's just very unnecessary sometimes with these pointless arguments with fans. Like, I feel like why not just ignore people now and again? Like is it really important for him to be just like having these like aggressive responses to frustrated fans? Like, I don't get what he's trying to accomplish here.
Yeah.
And the idea that maybe Jerry's paying him to do that explanation makes more sense than any plausible. I can think of, really, actually.
Yeah, and it's not even we all know, okay, the argument's silly. I get drawn into it. I mean, maybe we all have. I don't. Okay, fine. I know, with arguing silly. It's like the extra, like the guy's down. He kicks people in the head. It's the extra shot. It's not even the argument, which we can agree is pointless. Like, dude, you're like a millionaire. You're okay. You're a man about town. You got dogs. You got cool socks. You got a great gig. Okay, you win. And then he's like cheap shotting everybody. It's like, what is the thinking there? What has got him so riled? I mean, clearly he just sort of doesn't understand how it works. And that is like that's just like boomer. It's like the old man take. I get that he sort of doesn't really understand how this is supposed to work. I can only imagine what my father would be doing on social media, for God's sake. But I mean, beyond that, at some point, Brooks Boyers had to have said, hey, Steve, could you just do less of that? Could you just not do that? Or when you do it once, can you say, all right, I did, whoops, and now I'm done, and I'm going to give myself a timeout. The White Sox have had to say something. I mean, I love Chrystal's theory because it is very plausible, but that's like a sidebar deal. That officially he's had to have been talking to say, hey, Benetti's probably been like, what are you doing?
I don't know if you watched the game. They were playing the Guardians and they had to bleep Steve Stone multiple times because he kept referring to them as, their
right.
old name. Like, I thought I was maybe like high or something. And I was like, I don't know why are they bleeping this when they were talking about them? And then I realized he's not saying Guardians. He refuses to give this up. And they bleeped him until he stopped.
I do like, that.
Something's wrong up there.
Yeah. He's shaking his tiny fist. You're not going to take me. And listen, I get he grew up an Indians fan. I'm sorry that's been taken from you, Steve. I'm sorry, but come on, man. Jeez. Zach did a great job. And a lot of people chiming in like, come on, dude, I've been blocked by him. I know, there are many people have been and the reasons are never reasonable. I mean, I'm sure he has blocked plenty of people like cussed at him or something. I mean, okay, yeah, keep it above board. He doesn't like that. You keep it above board. You give him a counterpoint. I mean, this is totally like talking to your father, for God's sake. It's like, holy cow. I mean, just a guy who can't concede a point is fine if he's like the guy, doing the barbecue in the backyard. This is really probably the most prominent voice on your team, which is, maybe sad, but really in his role, he's terrific. And it is different from the way he approached it with the Cubs, which is ironic, especially now that the marquee does not allow like dissents on their programming. If you criticize the Cubs, they stop the taping, they erase the tape. Strange, but that he's like flipped in a way he has every right to think, things are going to be, he has a right to be sunny to the point where it's like, what's wrong with you, Steve, right? But the idea that there's no opposing idea when this team, this isn't a team that's doing well and we're just like, well, they're not on a 100-win pace. What's wrong with them? This team is terrible. And he's saying, well, they're only 3 games behind the loss column. Like it's a win. Yeah,
Do you think that Hawk would like body White Sox fans on Twitter too? If he
definitely not
given.
The thing is, this is very Hawk. And in fact, Hawk's like sunniest. Hawk was so critical of the team, they named him general manager at a time way back when. He became a lot more of a strange sort of like grumpy apologist, I guess. Like he'll run down to the locker room to save a guy who had just been hurt, but then he goes silent. He became a very weird character, a very, very detestable character at the end of his career. But he's a guy who even wasn't afraid to say what it was. So Hawk would have to like learn how to turn the phone on. So I mean, it probably just wouldn't have it, because clearly Steve barely knows, and he's just doing terrible damage with it. I mean, it's funny that the inside joke is like, he doesn't know, that's like a running joke, right? He doesn't know how to operate something. He's always played, he's like, Jason teases him because he like, he still reads a print newspaper or something, right? And yet, he's like doing all this damage, then Eddie like stays out of the fray. He doesn't even like things. He just sort of like just does his thing, and he takes the compliments, and what cool. Takes a criticism, probably knows to like not respond to criticism. And Steve Stone is just, man, he is just off the deep end. Yeah, he really is the okay boomer t-shirt of the White Sox. And it's crazy because his broadcasts are still good. His insight's still really good. He hasn't Harry carried himself. He hasn't, I mean, literally the announcer, not literally, but the announcer Harry carried. He hasn't Ken Harrelson himself. I mean, Hawk, man, he needed to retire a few years before he retired. Steve's still there. It's just, boy, on Twitter, he should retire from Twitter. He should do. Well, it's fun to talk about this. It's unfortunate that we don't have like a lot more wins to talk about, and instead we're talking about Steve Stone. And it may come up again. I think it has come up before. It unfortunately probably will come up again, because he's not going to like give it up. I do not see him like with any kind of mea culpa, like, oh, really, I haven't been professional on Twitter. I'm going to be better about this. I'm going to be a little more encouraging. I'm just going to ignore the bad stuff. Boy, that would be crazy. That would be an April Fool's joke for sure. Well, okay. We'll probably talk again on one of these motherships here. Maybe exclusively the Indianapolis Field Office, maybe with actual more writers. Come on, Central Time Zone, represent. It's right in your wheelhouse. This isn't 6 o'clock in the morning Eastern Time. Come on, Central Time Zone. Stand up, be on the podcast. Welcome to all. Hopefully under better circumstances. We got a crazy homestand coming with the Dodgers and Texas. It's going to be weird. We can see Steele Walker and lament some more about trades now gone. But we'll be back with another podcast surely before you're ready for one. But thanks for listening, reading, watching. Ton of content. Big Dodgers series coming up. Enjoy the day off, and